Welcome to Transformations, straight talk about life, business, and spirituality. Today I have Corey Jahnke with me. As usual, I'm very excited to have a wonderful conversation with him. So welcome, Corey. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, fantastic. I had an awesome work day, really productive day in my office before that, and it's a beautiful night in Wisconsin. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today because today we're going to be talking about Mother Nature and how we can learn from her. And so I'd love for you to start with your blog post that you just wrote about.
Well, it was a fun post to write this weekend because I was talking to a lady the day before I wrote to this post who was asking me about how could she lose weight. And as often happens, I'm a pharmacist for a large company, and all the time people come in and they want to ask me about what can I do to lose weight. And as soon as I start saying things like put down your fork and pick up your shoes, then all of a sudden I start getting all these reasons why that's impossible for them. Well, I can't walk because I have this problem. And then I say, well, what about swimming? Well, I can't swim because of this. And what happens is I feel like they're trying to convince me that they're exempt from having to do the things that would go ahead and improve their health. And personally, I care about them, but it's their life. However, either way, I don't get a vote. So what I said is that, you know what, I remembered from when I was a kid the chiffon margarine commercials that Mother Nature starred in. So I knew what she looked like, and so I went ahead and found her and interviewed her. And I asked her, I said, well, what do you think about the stories that people are always giving me about why they are exempt from having to do the things that make their health better? And she said, well, quite frankly, I'm not impressed with stories, I'm impressed with action. So then I asked her, I said, well, how do you keep score? And she said, well, every time you grab a water instead of a soda, you get a green point. But every time you grab a cheeseburger and fries instead of a salad, you get several red points. And so we really had this nice conversation about how Mother Nature keeps score, because what happens is we as people get attached to these stories about why we can break a bad habit regardless of the habit, why we can't do that. And I was doing that myself. One of the things I haven't done in the last 8.5 days is drank a diet soda. And I was telling myself all these reasons why I deserved a diet soda and everything else, but the point is the diet soda affects my body the way it affects my body regardless of what stories I tell myself. So it was really, really fascinating. Do you have thoughts on that, Carly?
Well, as you know, when I had my knee surgery, I could have done an interview or canceled the interview. So again, we always have choices in life. And yes, I was in pain. Yes, I was in a hospital. Yeah, I got in the wheelchair and I wheeled myself out to the courtyard and I did the interview. So I think in life we always have choices. We always have a choice to, like you said, grab the diet soda or to have the healthier option, whether it be the water or to have even half juice and half water. I think in life we always have the choice to do something that is better for ourselves. For example, right now I am having, waiting for another surgery, and I always have choices whether to have, and I'm not being able to be as active as I normally would like. So I always have the choice whether to have that salad or to reach for something that I may be craving in that moment. So I really do think, we have to make the choice as to how we want our lives to be. So it really boils down to what it is that we want. Not only is it what we want, however, how do we want to feel? Because bottom line is that what we want has to be in congruency with how we feel. And the funny part is how we feel is going to actually turn into what we want, because they're hand in hand. When we feel not so well, or when we feel, I'll actually use the word crappy, we're not going to give the results. We're not going to actually be able to do the results, if you will, to produce something that's better, because we're just not going to, we're not going to want to do something when we're not feeling well. I mean, that's just the way it is. When you don't feel good, you don't want to do anything.
Yeah, that's the part that's heartbreaking as a pharmacist. You get so many people who, they start down that path of, well, you know what, probably I should take the cart and drive around Walmart and versus walk. And then pretty soon what happens is you see they start being excluded from everything life has to offer. Because, like you said, Jim Rohn said it like this. He said, some people don't do well because they don't feel well. And so one of the things that I've really become a great believer in is, okay, maybe you can't go out and run 10 miles, but there's got to be a choice that you can make that is going to improve your life. And then if you start looking at all of your choices, the way you spend your money, the way you treat the people that you love, the way you treat yourself, then all of a sudden you realize that these stories that you tell yourself are pretty serious and pretty dangerous. I think that what's kind of scary about the way the brain works is oftentimes our thoughts become impulses and feelings. So people tend to feel like they can't do something. Like when you look at a certain workout and you say, well, I'm probably not up to that today. But then maybe you get a friend that comes along and says, hey, I'll do it with you. And then all of a sudden you've got all this energy. So I think we really need to just take some time to look at the honesty that we have, with ourselves and say, you know what, am I being 100% honest? And so one of the ways I help my clients is I say, every time you get a thought or a feeling that takes you away from the power that you have in life, try writing it down and then try arguing with it and then see what happens. So if you write down, I don't have the energy to go for a walk tonight, and then, write, well, what do I have the energy for? And if somebody came along and said, hey, do you have the energy to go for a Harley ride? Or, hey, do you have the energy, to go for a long drive? All of a sudden you start realizing, you know what, I do have that energy. I'm just displacing it because of a story I'm telling myself.
Well, okay, you said something that's really key there. Buddies, partnerships. I always tell people, find someone to do things with. You might find, you can even put up an ad somewhere looking for someone to go for walks with. I mean, there's so many tools out there. Again, the internet is a wonderful tool. Find someone in your neighborhood that you can go for walks with. There's so many wonderful resources out there to do things with. If you need someone that's going to encourage you, find someone to do it with. That's the thing. We get into ruts. So find a buddy that's going to hold you accountable. Get in a mastermind. And again, your environment is so key. Music lifts you up. And again, what type of music are you listening to? Don't listen to like heavy, dark rock and roll that's going to just drag you down. Find music that's inspiring. If it's country that lifts you up, great. Let it be country. If it is some sort of rock and roll that's really got a beat that lifts you up, great. But make sure it's music that lifts you up. And again, it could be aromatherapy or a scent, a candle that lifts you up. Just make sure it's your environment. Lights. If you're in a really, really dark room, it's not going to bring your spirits up. There have been studies on this. Again, if people that are in countries where Alaska, when it's dark for long periods of time, okay? SADS, SAD, you know about this in the pharmacy industry. I'm sure your experiences with people on antidepressants for that one disorder where they're not exposed to a lot of light. You have to expose yourself to environments that are also positive. So it's more than just what you eat. It is more than just exercise. It also is your environment. So do the things. There's so many tools. If you're in a really sad space, make yourself smile, sing out loud, jump up and down. There's so many things you can do in that moment to bring yourself out of that state. Call a friend. Just don't sit there and go, woe is me. Do something.
And the big thing about environment is what you have that's conducive to your health and what you have in the house that's not conducive to your health. I was reading a study about willpower, and they say that willpower actually doesn't work because it takes so much energy. So if you've got the ice cream in the freezer, you're sitting there going, should I have some ice cream? Should I not have some ice cream? Should I have some ice cream? Should I not? And then all of a sudden what's happening is that as you're going through the day, the boss is stressing you out, the kids are stressing you out, maybe your husband or wife is stressing you out. And what happens is that you begin to wane in energy, and so now you don't have the energy to fight against the ice cream in the freezer. So get it out of there in the first place.
Okay, so you said something that was so important there. One of the things I do is one of the programs I have is we actually do a 3-day filmed kitchen clean out, and that's the thing what people don't get about. And first of all, I don't use words that are disempowering. To me, the word diet is not an empowering word. Okay, so for me, literally lifestyle change or creating a
Very
healthy
good.
lifestyle. I don't understand when people say lose the weight. That to me also is not an encouraging word, okay? So it literally, if it's in the house, you're going to have, like you said, why have things in your house that you're going to struggle with? Put foods in your house that are empowering, that you're going to not have to struggle to eat. So in other words, don't have things in your house that you're going to be fighting with. Why put yourself in that? That's torture. Why do that to yourself? So fill your house with fun, healthy foods. Fruit is fun, and it's also healthy, and it also is sweet. Watermelon is so wonderful for your body. It's alkalizing, and it's sweet. So people think, oh, healthy food is boring. It's not sweet enough, and I have a sweet tooth. There's plenty of things that are sweet that are healthy, where you can get that kind of sweet taste. So don't fill your house with things that you're going to be tortured by. It's just ridiculous. Why do that to yourself? So yeah, I love that you brought that point up, because that is such a vital thing. And it is such a thing that your environment is what you live in. And another thing is clutter. And actually, it's funny, the show I did yesterday with Charlie, we brought up clutter, and it is such a vital thing. It's, okay, a big one. Our bedrooms. We sleep in our bedrooms. That's the place where you nurture your body and go to sleep. How well do you think your body is sleeping when you're sleeping in a bedroom that's full of stuff around you? It's like, that is the most, okay, I'm going to give an example. I'm going to go back to you. I'm going to be quiet so it blue boxes you, and I'm going to let you speak for a minute so people can see your environment now. Your office, now that you've put a desk and you have pictures behind it, how does your office feel to you now?
Well, it's really funny that you should mention that, because I actually did it on a Saturday, and then I gave away the rest of that day to someone else's agenda. And I was so crabby Saturday night, I just about couldn't stand myself, because I really had all the stuff I wanted to get done, but my desk came in, so I had ordered it, and I put it up, and then I had some pictures, and I wanted to put them up, and I put them up, and then I gave, my work time to someone else's agenda. And then what happened was, on Sunday, my wife and son, they had some appointments in the morning that morphed into almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was wild, because I literally worked on my writing and on my website from 8 in the morning till 5 at night without even taking a water break. I mean, it was so empowering and so exciting to just be in my own private personal space. And so, you're right. It was just, once it felt like, okay, this is my workspace, all I wanted to do was work. And it's been like that now ever since. It's been almost 2 weeks now, and it's just been really, really exciting.
I mean, when I was first doing the podcast with you in your space, it was just, I can't explain it. It was kind of like a void. You had this kind of makeshift, one of those picnic kind of tables or whatever. I can't remember, the white
Yeah, it was one of those
table,
picnic kind of tables.
and the wall was bare, and it was just, I can't explain it. It was just kind of, and yes, the sofa was there, but there's like this emptiness. It was kind of like this, for me anyways, it felt like this void or this emptiness. And now when I look at your space, there's this warmness. I can't explain it. There's this Corey warmness versus before there was this emptiness, this void. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. And what you can't see in the camera right now is, just to the right of me is the wall fountain, and I turned it on when I got home from work tonight. And as you and I were hooking up and everything, and it immediately relaxed me. And so I think it's really important that we all find a space that creates the best in us. One of the things I've been writing about lately is fun. I'm 47 years old, and it took me a long time to figure out that I forgot how to have fun. And the reason that I forgot how to have fun was because I would sometimes buy into other people's idea of what fun is for me. So like one of my relatives said to me, well, Corey, you can't write and study all the time. You got to have fun sometime. And I was like, but you don't get it. That 8 to 5 on that Sunday without taking a water break, I was in pure heaven. So I run this by my friend who lives in Iowa, and he says, I'm a lawyer, and then when I get off work, I'm immediately in my garden, and I'm out with our horses, shoveling manure, and I love that. And then people come along and tell me that I work too hard. I don't get it. So you know what? One of the things I'm really keying into is whatever fun is for you, whether it be spreadsheets, shoveling manure, writing, speaking, whatever. I think we all need to do life a little backwards. Isn't it true that most of us spend the week getting all this other stuff done, and then if we get to it, we'll do what's fun for us, as long as no one else minds. Instead, what if we started out planning the fun in first and then working the rest of the week around it? And I've been doing that now for the last several weeks, and that's working out just beautiful for me.
So you said something that is so much fun, actually. When I actually go on the road and do just what we call, anyways, just on the road interviews. And anyways, one of my phrases, I know you've seen all over on my pages, is learn, play, and grow. And I'll
Yeah.
always ask people when I'm interviewing them about the word play. And you'll be surprised how many adults I ask when I ask them that question. What do you do to play? And they're like, I actually ask them this question: what do you do? What does the phrase learn, play, and grow mean to you? And they're like, huh? What? What do you mean learn, play, grow? And they'll go, well, learning is this. Well, first you learn, and then you play. And they actually start, they actually have to go to this place to actually think about the phrase. And I'll say learning, playing, and growing. And actually, I had a business. I ran a preschool that I created a whole curriculum for. That's called Learning, Playing, and Growing. And it was really surprising. People would actually describe learning for me without any problem whatsoever. They described growing to me without any problem whatsoever. And they would literally get stumped on the word playing. And every interview, I'd always ask these three, I would call them trilogy phrases. Learning, playing, growing was always one of them. Cocoon to flight was always one of them. One of them was called creative conscious co-creation, which they would always get stumped on. And the word playing, they would get stuck on every single time. It was absolutely fascinating to watch. And it got so clear on as we as adults forget how to play. So I love that you brought that up. And it's so true, because you're right. People look at me and they're like, how in the heck do you do 3 shows? And you actually consult with your clients, and you're doing, how in the heck do you do all that? That's just way too much work? And I'm like, the reality is, though, coaching my clients is a lot of fun. However, what you and I are doing right now is a blast for me. I love doing these shows. I mean, it's like, this is playtime. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
And it is a lot of work, and it's playtime. So, yeah, absolutely. So what is playtime for you? We need to actually ask ourselves, every single person that we run into, even friends, we as adults need to find our playtime. Playtime is so important. And the thing about playtime is that is when we're learning and growing. And that is why I love that phrase, learning, playing, and growing. Because we do. When we're playing, we're learning and growing all the time. Look at children. When children are playing, that's when they're learning and growing.
For sure. And also, I think that we all have this incredible need. I think it's not even a want. I think it's an incredible need for creative expression. Obviously, you're one of the most creatively expressive people I've ever met. But, a lot of people take creative expression as just sort of something on the side, something that's weird. But you really need to put out that piece of you into the universe, whatever it is. My friend, he builds birdhouses. That's his way to totally creatively express himself. You and I, do shows and build websites and write blogs and things like that. Some people dance. My wife gets up at 4:15 every morning and goes out and runs. But that's her way of, and she's out there running with those fists in the air and screaming like a wild woman. And that's her way to creatively express herself. I think that's just so healthy to find that piece of you. And so what I find really sad is you'll ask a lot of adults, you'll say, well, Carly, how are you? And they'll say, well, Jimmy's got a ball game on Friday and Stacy had a soccer game over here. Yes, but Carly, how are you? And there's like this, what? I don't have a me. I'm busy carting everybody else around and taking care of everyone else's needs. And then I wonder why no one's interested in talking to me.
Okay, I want to know how your wife's going to feel about that description of her running around. I love that.
See it.
Good to her. I love the fact that she gets up at 4:15 every morning and does that. Kudos to her. Good for her. I love it.
Well, what's interesting about that, and we talked about this, what's great about Tanya is she'll go out and do her runs, and then, she comes back into my office down here in the basement with, it's cool and it's quiet, and we talk about these things that I'm brainstorming to write, and I said about the fun thing, and I said, you actually started getting up early because other people were hassling you about your playtime, didn't you? And she said, well, yeah, I mean, because if you're somewhere, then they're always like, well, no, don't go do that. Go do something with me. Their agenda wants to hijack you. So she just gets up before anyone else has a chance to hijack her agenda. And so for her, it's absolutely fun. I went out into the, not to brag about her or anything, but I went out into the workout area we have for the home, and she was doing that insanity asylum. And she's on the floor doing this thing with her hands in the ladder, and I laughed because, she's 43 and she doesn't look like it, but she's 43, and I would bet you there's not many 25-year-olds that would even try what she was doing. But for her, absolute blast. And I think that's great.
So she's doing the PX90 program, the Insane Asylum one?
Yeah, with Shaun T.
That's
It's no wonder Shaun T's hot.
Okay, I admit that whole program, I've actually done some of those programs, and right now I can't go. And yes, I know they're absolutely crazily insane, so absolutely, hands down, good for her.
Well, yeah,
I know how hard they are, so absolutely, I can't wait till I can get back to them, and I absolutely, good for her. That's all I can say, because I know how hard they are.
Right, and my point is for her, they're not hard, they're fun.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
and that's great.
And yes, okay, you have to admit, yes, they're fun, and why I'm saying that they're hard is because you have to, a lot of people, yes, they're fun, and too many people don't, what I'm saying, why I'm putting the hard in there is because too many people don't give enough kudos to themselves when they're doing something that is fun, that they're also very challenging. So, okay, let's eliminate the word hard and put in the fact that it's challenging. They're challenging themselves. Where I'm getting at is a lot of people don't give themselves enough credit when they're doing something that is that challenging. And that's why I kept putting the word hard in there, because I want people to understand, if they do not know what PX90 is or the Insanity program or the Silent program, how difficult they are. So I don't mean hard as in,
oh no, they're hard.
I'm just trying to put the emphasis in is that it's really empowering, and that what she's doing, as much as fun it is for her to do, I want her to understand that it's really empowering, and it's not just that, giving her enough kudos for herself that she's even doing that. So many people don't do that. It's like they just do it, and it's like they're not giving themselves, do you know where I'm going with this, don't you?
Oh, yeah, because time and time again, when you read the success literature, all of the people that have really gotten their goals really high say that a lot of people struggle because they don't celebrate the small victories along the way, and that's what leads to giving up.
So that's what I was attempting, not successfully. What I was attempting to do there is give Tanya the kudos right there, and saying that, good for her, because it is a very challenging program, and that I'm really celebrating her for that. So I was giving Tanya, this is your celebration victory dance.
Outstanding. But it is interesting because your point is really funny, because when you talk to people like my friend that builds birdhouses, I mean, they're phenomenal. And, you're looking at this thing going, I could never build something like this, and I'm really good with woodworking. And he goes, what? It's just a birdhouse. And people do that all the time. This guy makes this. I used to know this guy that sandblasted. Like if you were going to get married and you would do the wine glasses, and he'd put Carly and whoever and on the date and the whole thing. And him was no big deal. But you're looking at it like. So you're right. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm really, really great at something and enjoying that space, they're sort of like, well,
Whatever. It's like, whatever. I built. Oh, whatever. Next. Yeah, too many times. I'm not saying we're to sit there in this egoic state going, oh, look at me, I built this amazing birdhouse. At the same time, when people give us compliments, we kind of have this flaccid face going, yeah, whatever.
Why is it
we also need to learn to take in praise. There's a difference between taking in praise and, I can't explain it, but it's taking in praise and having an egoic face, or taking in praise going, thank you. It's kind of like when you're on stage and hearing the clapping, really soaking in the love, instead of being on stage and hearing the clapping and going, oh, look at me, I have all these people standing for me and clapping for me. It's just really soaking in the love. It's really important to soak that in. I
Oh,
do
I read
want to
it.
go back to our original. You and I can talk forever, so we can talk circles around conversations. I do want to go back, though, to our intention of the conversation about going back to Mother Nature, because I think it's, what we brought up are actually some really valid points about learning, playing, and growing, and so I do want to circle back to learning from Mother Nature. And we had talked about this one graphic that I had created, and we talked about your blog post about learning from Mother Nature. So let's talk a little bit about what Mother Nature can teach us.
Oh yeah, Mother Nature is interesting because she's got it all together. If you really watch and you take a look at trees, for instance, and their ability to last the season and then reproduce themselves, and they're majestic, and they just show their beauty, and yet then they know there's a time for beauty and then there's a time for hard work. And trees are just phenomenal that way, and that's one of the things that Mother Nature, and you had a different analogy when it came to trees.
I do. I'm going to be showing a graphic, and that graphic that I'm going to be putting in is I created a graphic called Learn from Nature. Now, if you look at trees, they have an amazing, strong trunk, right? Yet, if you've actually seen pictures of a hurricane, a tree can absolutely bend with Mother Nature, and that will actually bend and flex and move with the wind, right? And so that's the same thing that we beings need to learn to do with nature. We need to actually learn to ebb and flow with life. Life is always going to throw us curves. Life is never linear. We're going to have twists and turns, and like a tree, and its branches, right? It can bend and twist and turn. We need to learn to do that in life, and I think a tree is a perfect analogy for life. We need to have a very strong center, a very strong core, stand tall, stand strong, and learn to be flexible in life. Learn to be able to ebb and flow with life. I think nature is a beautiful blend, a beautiful teacher of how to be with life.
Oh, I agree. It's basically my understanding of the way Buddhism works. I was really stressed out for a long time and very anxious because I always wanted to stand tall and tough against things I couldn't change. And what would happen is that, much like a tree that won't bend, eventually you're going to bend. It's just a very painful process when it's a forced bend. And so one day I'm watching a show about Buddha and watching about how he shared that the stress is in the resistance and not in the actual acceptance of what it's going on that you can't change. And it's funny because it's not unique to Buddhism. I think the Christians always say, let go and let God. And then all of a sudden now they're all stressed out because they might not be clear on what it takes to be good Christians. So when they're not bending and flexible in their views of what God will or will not accept, that creates stress and struggle for them. But when they give their troubles to God and they bend to His will, then they're happy again. So I think that it's really important that we watch what Mother Nature has to say there and say, you know what? You've got to be smart enough to know what you can change and smart enough to know what you can't change, and you've got to be able to bend in both directions. And I think that you're brilliant with your graphic because it's so true.
Well, if you think about it, if you don't bend and are able to ebb and flow, if you will, it's going to snap. Like you said, that branch is going to snap. Your limb is going to break. So, we do need to learn to ebb and flow. And a perfect example of this, by the way, is they've done studies on this, actually, in balance. Limbs, actually physical bones, have literally broken more so when we lose our balance than if we actually have balance. So that literally, it's just true. When we're more
Sure.
balanced, we're going to catch our balance, and when we lose a balance and fall, we have more chances of breaking a bone, breaking a limb, if you will. So it is a perfect analogy.
Oh,
So
for sure.
as usual, I absolutely just love having these conversations with you. So for today, we're going to end, and obviously we'll be having lots of more of these conversations. So as usual, everybody, we look forward to your feedback, and if there's any particular conversation or information you'd love to learn about, please let us know. And I will, as usual, put together a page with our embedded video and podcast, and I look forward to our future conversations. So good night tonight for everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.